I mean, there's a lot of dander here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you got that?
Yes.
Gentlemen, welcome back to Gird Up. My name is Charlie Ungemak. I'm the founder and curator of the Gird Up podcast, now Gird Up Ministries. We got a special treat for you today, an interview with Mr. Jason Jaspersen. Before we get to that, thank you to our sponsor, Brigadier General Beard Oils and Supplements. If you need to take care of your beard, they're the place to get the stuff you need. Nate Hensler's a friend of the show, and he's a friend of mine. He's got a wonderful beard himself. He never does what I just did and shave off all the good parts. Man, he's a wonderful guy. He's got a great company, and he's doing a good job of making beard oil. So go get your beard oil from Nate Hensler at the Brigadier General store at sites.google.com/Brigadier General or facebook.com/Brigadier General. Shout out to all you guys who've been following us for a long time. I know a few of you guys have been waiting for this for a long time. Jason Jaspersen is a local artist here in New Ulm. For a long time, he was the art teacher at MVL, and now he is one of the art professors at Bethany Lutheran College up in Mankato, Minnesota. If you're familiar with the Wells and our circles, I'm sure you've seen some of his art. If you're an MLC student, he's the one that designed the new art head, the Knight head, in the LSC. You're going to actually see the mold for that in this video. Jason has all kinds of awesome things to say. I think he's an inspiration to creative people everywhere, myself included. And he has some awesome, wise things to say. He actually had a bunch of wise things to say that I had to cut out, too, because he just had so much to say that the video would have been too long. God bless you, Jason. Glad to have you on the show. I can't wait to share his message with all of you at home watching. Listen to what he says. Listen carefully. He talks slowly and deliberately because he's very thoughtful, and he has a lot of awesome, important things to say. Pardon the fans in the background. I know it's a little bit noisy, but it's worthwhile to just sit back, relax, and listen to the wisdom that comes out of Jason's mouth. So without any further ado, let's get into our studio tour with Jason Jaspersen. Fellas, we've got Jason Jaspersen here. We're in his studio. Thanks for inviting us in, Jason.
Sure.
Why don't you show us around? Show us what you got.
Okay. Well, this is the place where I make all kinds of artwork. I designed and built this space in 2010 with a good friend of mine, John Oppitz, and it's got different kind of arrangements, different zones. Right now I'm standing in a tall zone. If you want to come in and see, there's tall doors kind of hiding behind some stuff here, and track lights that allow me to kind of light my work differently. And the tall space is functional. All of this is intentional. Sometimes there's a boom truck that's bringing boulders in and out, or if I do a life-size sculpture, we have to be able to move it in and out at ground level. It's pretty messy right now. I usually like to keep a cleaner shop, but sometimes work isn't clean.
So what stage are these projects in here? Is this are these models, or are these the final product, or?
Yeah, we're looking at different things. These are, I think I can group these. These are models that are being developed for larger projects. These are models for a military monument that bridges 500 years between warriors. Both of them, he will have his arms. They're taken off for technical reasons. But both of them are reading their Bible.
Okay.
And actually, this is right on theme for Gird Up, I think. Men of action, men of war. In repose, they're resting. They're right in the midst of combat, or ready for it, but taking their time to soak in God's Word. So these two will appear at Bethany campus as bronze sculptures.
Very cool.
And then
very cool.
This is also a model which I suspect is really hard to understand. And that's part of what I struggle with, trying to clarify it, trying to make something seem obvious. And that's, these are probably interrupting vision. I think maybe people don't understand that about being an artist. You don't always know what you're doing, and that can be kind of a lonely place to be, and nobody can really tell you. What I've learned is you just have to keep working. You have to keep on going and keep on going. So this is, if I decode this, you might be able to see it. You can kind of see some feet up here. These are good clues. And those help you to sort of attach to a body here. And there's some feet down here. And that sort of leads you up another body. If I come around, if you get your camera to look here, there's a face. So that's the other end of these feet. And this figure is crossing a plane. There's these circles that kind of create a plane, and I want it to feel a little bit like water. And if I turn this, here's another face that sort of brackets this figure here. And what's really important is their relationship to that plane. So this is Jesus descending, crossing over, and his hand supports her back. And his head is submerged while hers is lifted over the plane. So there's this reversal. She's kind of floating helplessly, and he zooms in and lifts and provides the ability for her to live while he puts himself in peril.
Very cool.
To me, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
But it's not completely clear yet. There's a lot of work to do in the details that I think will make it easier to understand.
Yeah. And so when somebody asks you to do a project like this, how much guidance do you get from them as far as like what it's going to look like, or is this all a work of kind of your creativity?
This one's mostly from me. This is a concept that's been sort of an itch for a while. It's I've worked on it in various forms. This idea of sort of the reach, or I did a graphic illustration that shows Jesus' hand grabbing another hand, and it's sort of cropped. And this hand is us, and it doesn't do any grabbing. And this hand has a nail mark, and it's doing all the lifting. That sort of grew into this through different stages. So sometimes I have a patron who really gives me a long leash and says, "We trust you." And this is that kind of situation where I feel like exploring this. I feel like there's something here, and the world won't see it if somebody doesn't sort of give it a shot. I'm trying to think about how are different people going to look at this, and what can it offer them.
Yeah.
So, I just described symbolism.
Yeah.
I described what it means. But if I just rely on that will feed believers, but it won't necessarily invite unbelievers. Right. So I'm using beauty as a tool.
Yeah.
That hopefully this is intriguing to look at and draws you in and makes you wonder about it, so that maybe you want to learn what does it mean. There's a lot of Christian art, but to me that's not enough. Because a lot of Christian art gets things wrong, and to me it's important that I provide the goods, that I provide the theology that we're so sure about, because sometimes it's hard to find theologically accurate Christian art. So there's a gap there that I hope to help with.
So are these all projects that are shelved for now? Are they?
Yeah, some of them are duplicates of projects or models, or just figuring out how to do things that maybe it's just waiting. It's just auditioning for another project.
Yeah.
So here's an example. This piece is separate from the base here, and it must be so hard to get a camera angle because there's just stuff everywhere. But this piece too is separate, and both of them relate to something else besides themselves. These are plaster replicas of a Bible cover that I made. This was a sculpture that I did of young Martin Luther going to post his theses, and I wanted him to look like a graffiti artist, looking over his shoulder like he's in the train yard and might get caught, but also determined.
Yeah.
He's got this really strong pose. He's very sure of himself. And I did that so that I could do a woodblock print. So I sculpted it so that I could light it and look at it and draw it as a reference for the print. So both of these are kind of leftovers from other projects. And one day I looked at this stack of these things and I said, what if I put them together and make a box? So I mixed up some plaster, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know why. It just felt like, what if these flat things have volume?
Yeah.
That existing allowed me to think next, well, maybe it's a pedestal. And then this was sitting around somewhere else in the studio, and just on a whim I plunked it on top of it, and I thought, whoa, all of this content is about the life of Christ, and it's about distinctly Lutheran themes, sacraments and word, and I thought, and it's in this Gothic style. I thought, this just works really well.
Yeah.
Martin Luther standing on distinctly Lutheran themes, firmly striding. I didn't see that coming. I didn't know that was going to happen. And so this is going back to, sometimes things are just waiting.
Yeah.
So this is a monument that would be great to do someday.
Yeah.
And
do a huge.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. The scroll says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. What's left of it? Let's walk down the alley over here. There's maybe some more of the shop to see. Hey, this is a man podcast.
That's a serious anvil.
I acquired a serious anvil, and it used to look like this.
That's a lot of grinding.
Both of these were in the same fire in Medelia.
Okay.
So the handles charred off here.
Wow.
So that.
How much does that weigh?
A lot. So to me, I'm fascinated by the idea of a tool that makes tools.
Yeah.
And I have this fascination with systems that spawn other things.
Yeah.
So that comes down to being an artist too. Every medium is like a system that creates its artworks.
Yeah.
So sculpture is a system, and it creates sculptures. And you can't have a sculpture without having that medium of sculpture.
Right.
Or painting has that same kind of thing. You don't make a painting without the field of painting existing.
Right. Interesting.
So sometimes I'm thinking about generating that field.
Yeah.
Or how do I build a field so that it can build artworks?
And you've got a welder. So do you do a lot of metal work?
Well, I do enough.
Enough.
I'm a sculpture major, so
okay. Yeah.
Part of the process. I've got a welder, and there's a little kiln there and a bigger kiln on the floor here. It's got stuff on top of it right now.
Yeah.
Well, there's more.
Very cool.
More tools to see down this way. This is my kitty litter box. Speaking of maximizing, right on top of the chop saw. And some nice tools here, Japanese pull saws, and some beautiful hand-forged Swedish axes.
So what would the use for an axe be in a spot like this? Like, would that be like kind of rough cutting, or?
Yeah, theoretically it's rough sculpture
Okay.
of a log. I was more excited about acquiring them than I have been about using them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But you should hold it, because this one especially is just
Wow.
feels right.
It does. It's really well balanced.
Yeah,
Really well balanced.
the initials of the blacksmith are stamped into each.
That's cool. Very cool.
Handles are handmade. I love it as an object, and I wish I had more opportunities to use it as a tool. This feels like the right podcast to be pulling some of this stuff out.
Absolutely. Love this stuff.
The anvil and the axe. But I love using power tools too.
Have you done a lot of like blacksmithing type work?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Life is so short. There's
Yeah.
too many things to learn, and I want to learn them all. I just want to learn them all. But what I've learned is that that's a sacrifice. So if you're going to be a generalist, and I've resigned to the fact that I'm a generalist, it means that you're not going to get great at any one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty aware that I'm behind my peers in painting. People who are my age that focused on painting. If that's all I did, I know that I could be way better at painting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jump tracks, the same thing's true about being a sculptor. If I stuck to sculpture, I could be doing much better things than I am, but I wouldn't be painting.
Right. And is that something you've chosen, or is that kind of the path that has happened?
A little of both.
A little both.
Yeah, I remember being in college and kind of being advised, like, you should pick one thing and get good at that, and that makes a ton of sense. And I tried. So I'd pick one thing and I'd really work on that. And then I'd go pick another thing and really work on that.
Yeah.
And then jump to a whole nother thing. So painting and printmaking and sculpture and now illustration, like comic book style drawing.
Yeah.
Japanese ink painting.
Cool.
Japanese wood joinery.
Very cool.
I mean, I think my temperament just sort of does that.
Yeah.
So now it's a choice. Yeah, I heard Jordan Peterson say recently, you have to choose your sacrifices. And it's not a question of whether you will sacrifice in your life. Just be conscious that you have to decide what you're going to sacrifice. And that helps me to realize, okay, well, I'm not going to have it all. So if this is it, contentment with godliness is great game.
Yeah.
And this is it.
I'm going to use that excuse for why my Greek grades aren't very good. I'm doing ministry.
Sacrifice. Choose your sacrifices. Well, but you are doing other things.
Right.
You're doing things that other students aren't doing, and that's just real.
Yeah, it is.
Humans are finite.
Yep. There's only so much bandwidth.
Yeah. That's a hard lesson. And I think it takes pain to learn.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You got to crash and burn a couple of times before you can fly.
Because you think it's all possible until you find limits.
So as we go here,
Yeah.
obviously you got like the regular shop tools here.
Right, standard shop tools, but I do, I love kind of handmade kind of things. Got some finer tools in here.
So how long does it take to acquire all of this?
Well, I'm 40 something.
All right. All right.
I'd say 20 years.
Okay. So are you the kind of guy that buys a tool as you need it, or do you go out and say like, I know I'm going to need this in the future, or I would like to have this, that? I mean, like with the axes, it sounds like you kind of said, this is something I want, I'm going to go get it. But are most of your, like when you acquire tools like this, is it based on need?
It's mostly based on need, so it's a slow accumulation. But if I find something special, like the axes, I saw them in a shop and I thought, wow, that's a tremendous story. and they're expensive, but carpe diem on that. Or if I'm at a garage sale and I see one of these, I think,
Oh yeah.
yes, please, $3 you can have it, sure. So sometimes it's opportunity, but sometimes I go looking. Like this is a particular tool that I went shopping for. It's a marking gauge, a Japanese marking gauge. So this is a piece of steel that is sharpened on the end, and there's a set screw. It's all set in oak, so that if I drag this, it creates a mark at the desired distance. And that's handy if you're doing a lot of joinery. You need to mark all the same distances. So this mass produces marks.
Okay.
But most of the time, I don't buy tools just to like gather stuff. I definitely had a phase. I'm not in that phase anymore, but I definitely had a phase where I had tool lust. Like, I just gotta have a router, or I gotta have a random orbital palm sander or something. But now I feel like, okay, I have what I need, and I think there's maybe like 5 main things that you need to learn about anything that you jump into. There's a core piece of knowledge that you need to know, and then there's a million minutia, little things. There's another thing about this building. There's a cat that lives here. She might make an appearance.
Cool. Anything else you want to show us through here?
Well, let's look at this mold.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe interesting. It tells a couple stories. This is a mold for a piece that I recently did at Martin Luther College. It's a big knight's head, and it's a 2-piece negative mold. So 2-stage negative mold. So there's this flexible rubber, and then this rigid plastic. And this could also be plaster, or something else that's a hard, rigid mold. Yeah, get some cat footage. She's my buddy. So this comes from a positive. We made a sculpture, and then we made the mold on top of it, and now we can make duplicates. We can put plaster in it and make it over and over. It's a little like the idea of 3D printing.
Okay.
It's ancient technology for 3D printing, because you can mass produce.
Yeah.
And you just duplicate.
Cool. Very cool. All right, should we go look upstairs?
Sure. Tudy the Studio Cat. Follow her on Instagram.
Oh, she's got an Instagram?
Yes.
Link in bio.
The influencer.
Tudy the Studio Cat. She's got an Instagram. Link in the bio.
That's fun. Well, yeah, this is upstairs. I do computer work up here, and my drafting table is sort of my brain. I try to do that kind of concept work first thing in the morning. Get that done, so I sit there in the morning right away.
You're a coffee guy?
I am a coffee guy.
Sipping
Yes.
on coffee. I can see it.
Right. Yep, that's pretty normal. I walk out here with a cup of coffee, set it here. Tudy's talking like crazy, and I'm working.
So then how much, like what kind of work, what is it that you do on the computers?
Well, I guess I'd say I do finishing on computer. Most of the beginning of my ideas happen with sketching in the sketchbook. So I'll take things like that and scan it and work color or combine things in Photoshop. I'll also do some motion graphics, some mild animation. I'm not a great animator, but and I do some film editing, some video editing.
Okay.
And then sometimes I feel like I'm a professional emailer. And project management. That's a important thing for me. I use Trello.
Trello.
So we're loading. I use Trello, but it's not the software that's important. It's really the system that I apply to it.
Right.
I use the getting things done system. So that means that every task has to be actionable, and those tasks move to different categories.
And it kind of takes the decision fatigue away then too, because you've already got, it's organized. I know what I've got. I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not trying to decide. This is what I need to do. This is what I have to get done.
Right.
This is what I need to do it.
Yes.
Keeping it simple.
The hard thing to come to terms with is that this takes effort.
Yeah.
You put time into figuring out what to put time into. That's another thing I learned building this studio. John Oppett's always prepared for the next day.
Okay.
He would lay out the tools, lay out the materials. You know, he would dedicate a portion of the workday to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, let's do more. We can get more done, We gotta get ready. And then, you just calm down and set things out, because tomorrow you'll thank yourself.
Yeah.
And you arrive and everything's ready, and it's like a beautiful start to your day.
Cool. And that's all we got for you today, guys. Big shout out to Jason again. Thank you for allowing us to come into your space and being an awesome host. Shout out to Tudy the Studio Cat. All those links are in the bio below. Guys, I love you all. I hope that you're learning as much as I'm learning from these men of God who we're bringing in to help us learn how to be men after God's own heart. Jason is an awesome example of a warrior poet, a man who is both a genuinely masculine man. He's a man's man, but he's also an artist. He's a warrior poet. He has a lot of awesome things to say. If you don't have it yet, you got to go get yourself a Gird Up t-shirt. You can find the Gird Up store. You know where to find all that. It's going to be in the outro as well. Links down below. God bless you all, gentlemen. I love you. Go be the man that God created you to be. Gentlemen, that's the end of the video. That's all we got for you this time. So on behalf of all those involved in creating, editing, producing, and publishing this content, thank you for being a part of the Gird Up family. If you're not listening to the Gird Up podcast yet on whatever platform is your favorite podcast platform, you need to go subscribe right now and start listening today. There you will find over 300 episodes of interviews, man talk, and all kinds of other things, all geared at helping you become a man after God's own heart. It's a great resource. Go use it wisely. We also ask that you would consider supporting Gird Up Ministries by shopping at the store at girdupministries.com, buying a shirt like this one, or stickers for the back of your car, your water bottles, whatever. You can support us on Patreon by donating. Just look up Gird Up Ministries there on Patreon. Or you can go to girdupministries.com and buy us a cup of coffee. That's just a one-time $5 donation. Anything you donate goes right back into making content like this for men like you. Make sure you're following us on social media, particularly Facebook and Instagram. Like all of our posts, share them, get the word out to the world that we can and are ready to be men after God's own heart. With all that being said, gentlemen, I love you. I deeply care about you. I hope that this has been a blessing on your journey towards Christian manhood. Now go, gird up, and be the man that God created you to be. We'll see you next time.